In this video, we're going to take a look at one more property, and it's called the distributive property. Make sure you put today's date in the upper right-hand corner. So take a look at this example. If you had a problem like this, 5 times the quantity, 2 plus 3, following the order of operations, we would add on the inside of the parentheses. So 2 plus 3 is 5. So then we would have 5 times 5 and get 25. The distributive property is another way of doing this problem. And the word distribute means to multiply. So another way to look at this problem that we just did above, instead of adding inside the parentheses, what you can do, you could also distribute the 5 to both things inside of the parentheses. So what I'm doing is I'm taking 5 and I'm multiplying it by the 2, and then taking 5 again and multiplying it by 3. And let's see if we get the same answer doing that. So 5 times 2 is 10, plus 5 times 3, that's 15. And then you can add those together and get 25. So either way, doing that problem, you get the same answer using the distributive property or completing inside the parentheses first and then multiplying. What the distributive property is helpful with, it's good to help us prepare for problems with variables. And remember, variables just means letters that represent something, like X or Y or A or B or C. So if we take a look at some examples with some variables, here's what I'm talking about. 3 times the quantity X plus 5. So what this means is I just take 3 times X and then 3 times 5. So notice how I'm distributing it to both things inside of the parentheses. 3 times X is 3X. When you multiply a number times a letter, you just write the number next to the letter, which means that you're multiplying 3 times whatever the value of X is. And then 3 times 5 is 15. And then you're done, because you can't add 3x with 15. Notice that you can also do distribution over a subtraction problem. So let's say I had negative 2 times 3x minus 5. To distribute, we multiply what's outside of the parentheses by what's inside of the parentheses. So negative 2 times 3x, that's negative 6x, because negative 2 times 3 is negative 6 with the variable x. And then now I have negative 2 times negative 5. So be careful, negative times a negative is a positive. So now I've just distributed by taking the number outside the parentheses and multiplying it by the values inside the parentheses. So here are some helpful tips with the distributive property. You use the distributive property when terms can't be added or subtracted in the parentheses. So for example, like the two ones we just did above, we can't combine those terms together, the x plus 5. So that's why we use the distributive property. And then just a common mistake that people forget, make sure to multiply the outside number, so the number outside of the parentheses. Remember the hashtag sign means number, by everything inside. And then also realize this is different from the associative property. So both involve parentheses. The associative property is just grouping problems when you're adding or multiplying. Distributive property is when you're multiplying a number outside of the parentheses. So associative looks like this, where we have 3 plus 5 plus 6, and I've got different things grouped. And notice that there's a plus sign separating the number in front of the parentheses. So this was associative. Versus the distributive property would be like 3 parentheses 5 plus 6. And now notice here that there's no sign in between the parentheses and the number. So this means I'm automatically distributing and multiplying that number to what's inside of the parentheses. So just be careful when you're working with the distributive property and make sure you connect the difference between that and the associative property. All right, so you should be able to practice now using completing some problems with the distributive property.